going on about how attacked he was and how all of the people would be in jail for 50 years that have done these horrible things to him and any other administration, including, and he mentioned Lisa. And I was just kind of like, give it a rest, dude. I just like could like, it's it's kind of it's just truly, it's funny to say that the administration, the presidential administration right now, is not the weirdest or most bizarre thing happening in the world today. Because in any other, in any other, in any other world, it certainly would have been.
Yeah, it's a weird. Um, we joke about the Lisa Page puppet a lot, but it is a super odd uh, thing for the president of the United States to be tweeting about or talking about a uh, individual public servant, or in this case, former public servant, at a career level. I mean, that's genuinely bizarre.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and we
um,
like, it just like, I just feel like it is important to like remember that, like, while everything else happens, there's like sometimes this has gotten so normalized that like, but it was so weird. Um,
so, what has your day been?
ooh, good question. I went to there's a bunch of kettle ponds in Cape Cod, and they're beautiful. I went to a pond, and it is a pond that I've been going to since I was like 3, every summer, like every day, every summer since I was like a little kid, and it's that was kind of strange. It was the first time I've been in COVID, and people are like 15, in a place that's normally like blanket to blanket. People are 15 feet apart, and there used to be this big floating dock out there that was like 10 feet by 10 feet that would float into the pond. You could swim out to it, and there would be like these battles to like push kids off the dock and like all this kind of stuff. And that like it didn't get put out because I think like obviously like you can't like only one person could use it at a time, and so like it just didn't make any sense to even like tempt people by having this dock put out. And that was the first summer my entire life I've seen there's no dock out there. I don't know, it was just kind of, but it was lovely, it was really great. And then yeah, and I came home and I've been doing chores, made my own horseradish, I don't know, other things. That was kind of it.
All right, so what are we going to
What
talk
about
about
you?
today?
You drove home from
I
the
drove
cabin in the
home from the
woods?
cabin, and uh, uh, restored my computer so that it is functioning with its external screen. I even have like now an external keyboard and a mouse, because all it.
That's my always how I use my computer. I don't understand how people can use laptops like laptops. I especially don't understand with like you have a million things you have going on all the time.
You know,
You're just really
I
good at flipping between screens.
I guess I mean I'm gonna have to replace the screen on this computer now. But until then, it's functioning as a desktop.
Yeah.
So should we take some questions and then plan the show for the
Yeah,
week?
Joel asked you what you thought of the Roger Stone deposition footage that was on Politico today. I don't know if you watched it.
I have not seen it. I've been on the road. Maybe we should bring Joel in for a description. Um,
I haven't seen it either. That would be great.
uh, let's see. Let me find Joel. Um, I don't see Joel. Um, I don't see Joel.
Hmm.
Um, all right. Should we take? Why don't we just take the questions in the order in which they're? Oh, there's Joel. All right. Let's bring in Joel. All right. In comes Joel.
Great. I have no idea what this is about. I'm excited to hear about it.
There seems to have been a problem with our YouTube link for a while.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess.
but we are streaming to Twitter for the first time ever.
Oh, hi. Hey,
There's Joel.
everything.
Hi, Joel.
This is my first
Joel, what's the
video.
good word?
Good heavens, I would have gussied up a smidge.
Hey,
No,
And I'm having smoothie.
You know?
Blueberry.
that's nice.
good.
Blueberry.
This is a
I'm having
Michelada.
between the sheets.
And as you can see, I'm at the cabin.
What do you hear?
I'm still at the cabin here.
Excellent.
Yeah. So question was, rather disturbing video of Roger Stone giving a deposition. And I would say he appears kind of bordering on unhinged. So my question is, as experienced legal folks, is he truly that shaken by the experience, or is it a tactic to not have to answer questions?
Interesting.
So when was the do you know what case the deposition was taken in, or what the circumstances were when it was from?
I think it was
Looking it up.
just prior to sentencing. I think. I looked at it this morning and I don't remember the details super well.
Interesting.
Huh.
Okay.
So I don't know what that. So let me preface this by saying this is the first I've heard of this.
I'm seeing
And
a
I don't know-
deposition, but it's from February.
From February, but in what case? It wouldn't have been in the criminal matter.
Huh. I don't know. I'm. Let me see if I can find it in news.
Yeah, it was inside one of the articles, but pretty darn interesting.
Okay, so yeah, so with the caveat that this is taking me completely by surprise, and I'm not in a position to answer it authoritatively. I'll say the following: Roger
I
Stone is
remember
an
this.
extremely eccentric individual. Okay, well, what can you tell me, Kate?
It's not new. It's a video. Maybe it got linked to because it was another Politico did a story on Roger Stone today, but it's not a new video. It's the old video of him kind of snarling at at the opposing counsel. You've probably seen it, Ben. It's from the end of February 2020. And it got leaked right before his sentencing in February. Right before sentencing at the end of February, March. So that's why kind of it came up. But it was he went on this kind of profanity laced rant and
And part of it was kind of weird, really strange sort of almost physical tics, kind of shaking hands and quivering mouth, and really odd.
Yeah.
Really odd.
So a couple things. First of all, Roger Stone is an extremely eccentric individual. I think he is genuinely eccentric. It has never been clear to me how much of that is tactical and how much of that is a function of, who he is as a human being, or even being a really odd duck. He is, and there's a very, very fine film about this. I forget who made it, but it's called Get Me Roger Stone, and it's a documentary about him during the 2016 campaign. And it portrays him in all his bullying, extravagant eccentricity. Now, how much of that is an act and a persona, and how much of that is who he is, I really don't know. I don't know the guy. I've never interacted with him, and I don't think it's worth my speculating about, honestly. I do think it is a creature that the judge in his criminal case has clearly been dealing with since the beginning. He did, after all, post an image of her with a crosshairs on her on social media. He's a whether you treated as a deliberate constructed persona, or in the sort of similar to Donald Trump as a very deep ingrained feature of who he is. I really don't know which is the accurate way to describe it in the case of Roger Stone. But it's a very consistent theme of his behavior over a long period of time.
So I guess my question is...
So that's all I got for you.
The one thing I will add is that, like, depositions are a little bit more anything goes than actual witness testimony, and so they do tend to have, like, they will push buttons, and like the you know, a little bit more, a lot more is allowed because, you know, there's not usually a judge sitting in the room, and so they can be a little bit more emotionally heated. So they could, I mean, and I could see it being a tactic actually for the prosecution to try to work him into a lather to kind of like get him to lash out or do something completely nutso. So like not a tactic actually on his part, but like a tactic of the other side of trying to expose his like lunacy or his eccentricity. Does Ben agree?
Absolutely. So if you're an opposing counsel, getting Roger Stone to be full Roger Stone gives you the opportunity to file the brief that says, you know, the witness was, and then choose all your adjectives. He said blank and then said blank. He used profanity. You know, all of that is, you know, the more badly behaved a witness is, generally speaking, that's opposing counsel rubbing his hands with glee, precisely because, you know, eventually Politico might run a story like this. And so how much of this is Roger Stone's eccentricity and how much of it is, you know, tactical advantage from opposing counsel, you would really have to, or gleaned, right, or adored by opposing counsel. You'd really have to know something about the trial strategy before you guessed. But all of that is, as I say, with zero context and having watched none of it and knowing only what you guys just told me. So I reserve the right to retract all of it.
Well, that sounds pretty good.
Thank you, Joel.
Anyway, hey, thanks, guys. Great show. Good to see you.
Thanks. Nice to see you, Joel.
Good to see you. All right, who else do we have today?
We have a question about a prophylactic pardon.
Yeah, all right. That's a good subject, actually.
I agree.
So let's bring David Schmaltz in, who is not to be confused with Don Schmaltz, the former independent counsel who investigated Mike Espy. But
yeah, I like this question.
That requires that he actually show up. No sign of him, though.
Okay.
Why don't you just read the question and then we'll
Sure. It's can you explain how exactly prophylactic pardons work and what they can and cannot be applied to? I heard the term from Glenn Kirshner, so assume it's a thing. It is a thing. It's a thing from the Nixon days. But Ben, go ahead.
No. Go, please.
Well,
say your
I
piece
don't
on
have
the
a very sophisticated understanding of them, except that they refer to the potential ability of a president to pardon themselves. Basically, if they are, and I don't know much more to it than that, Ben.
So I know
that there's more to it.
Primarily, I don't think it's primarily about the ability to pardon oneself. I think so the term prophylactic pardon can refer to a few things. One is a thing that doesn't exist, which is the ability to pardon future crimes.
Yes.
And most people believe that that is not a real thing, right? So if Kate is president and I say, I will do X for you, but you have to pardon me in advance. I think most people believe you can't pardon something that hasn't happened yet. The second thing is, can you pardon hypothetical acts?
Yeah, but it's, I'm sorry, I'm just
And the
looking up.
answer,
I guess it's defined also as like, they can't, you're exactly right. You can't pardon yourself from something you have not been indicted for, or anyone else from something they have not been indicted for. Yeah.
well, but that you can do. For example, so this is the Nixon situation
Okay.
where Ford pardons Nixon for, you know, all crimes that he may have committed in the context of Watergate.
Okay.
And that's, you know, a sort of non-specific pardon, right? It's not Roger Stone has been indicted for X, Y, and Z. We will pardon him for the crimes outlined in this indictment. It's a kind of more transactional thing than that. I'm pardoning Kate Klonick for all the shit she may have done up until now, right? And yeah, it's a kind of get out of jail free card. Now, a good example of that, so presidents do this. And the most famous example of this is Jimmy Carter, who pardoned basically all draft resistors. Now, some of them had been charged. Many of them had, the vast majority of them had not been charged. But he pardoned them all as a kind of general matter. Now, if you're an uncharged draft resistor, maybe who the government hasn't even noticed, you know, that's a pretty prophylactic act, right? The third sense in which people mean it is in the sense that Kate described it, can you pardon yourself as president? And the answer to that question is, well, that's a great untested question of constitutional law. Most scholars believe the answer to that is no. The formal position of the executive branch in an OLC opinion is that the president cannot pardon himself. But the current president asserts that he can. So I think that's the third possible sense. And actually, Pontiac Silverado in a comment mentions still another use of the term, which, as she rightly points out, Bill Clinton pardoned Mark Rich, who was a fugitive who had fled the United States during his prosecution. I believe it was a combined, he was indicted for, if memory serves, tax evasion. And I think there was some element of evading sanctions or trading with a trade ban on arms ban on trading with Iran or something. But he had fled to Switzerland and had been living there ever since. And he was a fugitive, right, with the indictment pending. So he was pardoned in connection with all those acts that he had a pending indictment for. So very similar to Roger Stone's commutation, except, of course, that Roger Stone was not a fugitive. So that's another sense in which you could say a pardon was prophylactic. So there are various senses in which the phrase can mean, but it always carries a bit of an air of disreputability, although I think some uses of it are much more obviously legitimate than others.
I had no idea that it had all of those different meanings. That's fascinating.
Well, it's not a term of art, you know. It's a
kind of a catch-all.
It's a kind. I mean, it's not even a technical term. It's just according to the questioner, it's just something that Glenn Kirshner referred to, and so I'm trying to describe what it could mean, right? And it could mean any of those things. And which one it does depends very much on what the speaker is trying to convey. Okay,
Yeah.
we have a question from Kathy, um, and I am inviting her on the screen. Um, with an eye toward her showing up at some point. I still have not entirely figured out what the expected delay on Crowdcast is. So my apologies for how long it takes some people to show up once I try to magic them in. It's faster on YouTube on so Crowdcast informs me that Kathy is accepted and is connecting. So, but how long it takes her actually to connect, I don't know. Oh, now it
Okay.
says she's rejected. So let's try again. And if she rejects again, then we will read her question.
Is it in the Q&A, Ben?
Maybe we should. Maybe we should read her question.
Okay, so can you all plan a discussion about how the election can be protected? No doubt, highly complicated and technical. Lots of Twitter getters about this, but nothing substantive. Yeah, I think
So
that this
we have
is
had a
like.
bunch of. Go ahead, Kate.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, we've talked about this a bunch, like at the very beginning of the show.
And several other times. So to Kathy and others interested in this, look for our past shows with Alex Stamos and particularly with Nate Persily, who have both we've brought on at various times to talk about this very specifically. It's a subject that we've treated in a lot of depth.
Yeah,
And we will
and
undoubtedly treat it in more depth.
I think we should have Nate back on to talk about how things are progressing. He had a really great tweet that apparently the Milwaukee, see if I can find it. Apparently the Milwaukee Board of Elections tweeted out a really great article about how mail-in voting was going to work. And I just think that there are certain things that, like, it sounds so basic, but there are certain things about mail-in voting that are going to be, it's just going to be so important to have transparency on. So having kind of like Board of Elections have memorandum in which they detail how they're going to like preserve elections is just going to be, I think, really important. Let me see if I can find this so I can send it to people.
Agreed. So we are actually, I'm not sure I should say this yet, but Nate Persily has been organizing an incredible project on election monitoring and security that we've been that has been a lot of people have been involved in, and on Lawfare we are planning to have a bunch of those people write digests of the material that they're working on, and so we hope to have that coming relatively soon. And it'll be a pretty significant content stream that we're working with the Stanford Law people on, and hope to have to you soon. So we will definitely have Nate and maybe some of the students who were working on this project come on and talk about some of the work they're doing. It's really terrific stuff, and some of the material is horrifying. Some of it is pretty encouraging. So
Well,
here's
that's
a
exciting.
comment from Andrew
I know that he's
McMahon.
working. Yep, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was
Comment
just going
from
to
Andrew
say, I know
McMahon can
that
wait.
I've also been talking to Nate about, there's a bunch of experiments happening around election, like ads, political ads and elections and polarization, and social media that Nate is a part of, and that there's like that are super important, that a bunch of other kind of social science scholars are working on right now. And I think that they're going to be, I think it's just going to be some of the best, most substantive data that we are getting out of what is a very talked about issue that we actually don't have really so many experiments or so much data to show us that it, that it's super important, like that political ads, for example, polarize us as much as we think they do, or that social media in general polarizes us as much as we think we do. There's a bunch of really good stuff coming up that'll be coming out after the election. I think it's going to be fascinating. So yeah,
I could not agree more. And I actually think there's a huge, so one of the really interesting things that's happening now, and it's largely invisible to the public, but I think it's really important, is how much work is going on behind the scenes to make this election actually function. And,
yeah,
it is, it's a little bit, I don't know how to say this. It's a little bit sort of obscured both by, presidential rhetoric, which has been, shall we say, unhelpful, but also by the, and I don't mean to equate these because they're not morally similar, but the degree to which certain people on the left equate problems in voting that people are working in good faith to resolve with active voter suppression. And
I completely agree with that.
I think there is a huge amount of work that is happening right now. And some of it, at the local levels and the state levels, it's really in good faith to try to make this election come off. And we're going to see radically different performances by states and by jurisdictions within states where that work has been effective and where that work has not. And in a real kind of laboratories of democracy sense, you're going to actually be able to see this state pulled this off really well. This state really fucked up. Or within this state, this community really did a good job. This community really screwed up. And we're going to learn a lot. It's not going to correlate by party in quite the way people expect it to. It's going to be a lot of complicated stuff. And I think it's really important to watch because we're going to learn a lot about best practices in elections under stress. And there are a lot of Democratic constituencies or Democratic communities that are pretty complacent about it because they know who's going to win in their jurisdiction. So why stress about it? And there are some Republican constituencies that are much less complacent about it than you would think. And so I think we're going to learn a lot, and it is worth being very attentive to and somewhat open-minded about.
Yeah, totally.
All right. We have a suggestion from Andrew McMahon for a guest, Elliot Morris, who started as an independent election forecaster and now does election forecasting for The Economist. So I agree with that. I think there are 3 or 4 significant election forecast projects going on right now. There's the 538 project. There's Nate Cohn at the New York Times. There's Elliot Morris at The Economist. There's Rachel Bitcover at I think she's at Niskanen. And I think having a serious conversations with 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them about some of their assumptions and what their what their data right now, at least as far as I can tell, their product is pretty consistent with one another. But that may be because the polls are so extreme right now. But I agree, like having some people on to talk about the assumptions they're making in their modeling and how they're similar and how they're different would be a really great show.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Should we plan the show?
Yeah.
Speaking of suggestions for the show.
Exactly. Let's see. Okay. We've had a bunch of I'm looking through my notes. I've had a bunch of people on. We've slowly kind of crossed people off. Shane Harris. It was a while ago. Let's see.
So I thought we should have Josh Sharfstein on.
Sure.
Josh is the former acting director of FDA and is the vice dean at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, and he's also my high school chemistry lab partner. Yeah, Josh and I went to high school together.
That's fun.
And he's a great guy, and he's a very rare bird in the public health world in that he has been a city health commissioner in Baltimore, a state health commissioner, and worked on the Hill. He worked for Henry Waxman for many years, and he has been a senior official at FDA. And so and he wrote a book about pandemic preparedness. So he's a really sharp and interesting guy. And I think we should have him tomorrow or Tuesday if you're game for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm super.
All right,
would be
let's
happy
do
to
that.
have him tomorrow. Great. Dana Goldstein, who's a friend of mine from college. Yeah, and is writing an education for the New York Times. Has a book on education and schools. She's wonderful. And as schools open up, she's been talking a lot to NPR and to like a few other places about kind of,
super great idea. So I think Josh is holding Monday and Tuesday. So let's give him his choice of Monday or Tuesday, and let's maybe get Dana for Wednesday.
Okay.
Or whatever day she can do.
Sure. I can do that and see what she can do.
And then Jack Sullivan suggests Suzanne Maloney to talk about Iran. So Suzanne is a friend and Brookings colleague, and I think the world of her. And I will invite her. She frequently shows up on the Lawfare podcast, so she's very game for working with us. The one thing is that Suzanne is the acting director for the Brookings Foreign Policy Program, and in that capacity is super busy. And so I don't want to blithely commit her time, but I will certainly send her a note and see if she is game to join us. It may take a little bit of setting up.
Okay.
We've had repeated requests for Anne Applebaum, and I have been in touch with Anne about this. So there is a problem for Anne, which is that, it is basically midnight where Anne lives in Poland, and it is 11 o'clock or midnight in where she is when we do here. And I don't really want to ask her to stay up late to do in lieu of fun. She will be doing the Lawfare podcast this week, both about her new book and about her essay. And I will talk to her in connection with that. I'll ask her if she wants to stay up late to do a conversation with us. But I'm not gonna push her to do it because it's actually an unreasonable time of the evening for her.
So I have a friend from college that I've kind of been toying with the idea of mentioning to you. I don't know if he'd do it. He is a rising crossword puzzle maker. He frequently does the crossword puzzles for the New York Times and other publications. His name is Ross Trudeau, and he is, I don't know, I just kind of think it's kind of, I would love to talk to someone about how you make a crossword puzzle.
I would love to do that, and I think I mentioned this before. My friend who is a bank robber and who spent his many years in prison designing crossword puzzles by hand would be a super person to pair him with.
Yeah.
And I can ask Ed if he's game to join us. I think there is nothing inconsistent about joining us with the terms of his parole. But yeah, he.
Thoughts about Andrew Sullivan?
I'm game to talk to Andrew anytime. Andrew and I have a long history of pleasant and not so pleasant headbutting, and I think highly of him, and I would be happy to chat with him. Ann Coulter, I'm less happy to chat with.
Yeah, ditto.
I think she's and I don't think she would want to chat with us, to be honest. Other ideas?
So who else did I have? I'm still trying to nail down Cash Hill, but she had to run it by the New York Times, and she's also kind of on maternity leave, so she's kind of like a little bit hard to kind of finagle, but she'll be great when she comes on eventually, but that's just kind of a long-term thing. I'm trying to think. I feel like people came up when Jeff Jarvis was on, but it's like things are escaping me now.
Tom McGuckin suggests Natasha Bertrand, and David Chandler suggests Tom Nichols.
Sure.
Those are both lovely ideas and very doable. And John Bordeaux, I don't know why Lauren DeJong Schulman is spurning me on the subject of coming on the show. But Erin Simpson, I will certainly reach out to on Civ Mill Relations. I am very fond of Erin, and she is a super good conversation, as people who listen to the Bombshell podcast will know. She's very funny and great conversation. Masha Gessen, I will send her a note. I can't promise. We don't know each other well, although we certainly know each other's work. So I don't know how into the idea she will be, but I will reach out to her. And Josh Sharfstein is now, as of is confirmed for Monday.
Oh, great! Great. Okay, great. Awesome. That's a pretty solid. We have a pretty solid list of people to.
Yeah, it's
Suzanne
a good.
Maloney, Tom Nichols, Natasha Bertrand, Erin Simpson, Masha Gessen. I feel like there's some highs and lows there of people to kind of nail down. Yeah. It would be fun to have Andrew Sullivan on to talk about maybe he's doing kind of something more.
Maybe we should have both him and Yasha Monk back, because he's reviving his blog, The Dish, and Yasha's created this new magazine / community, Persuasions.
We were going to have him on anyway to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. So they were both responding to the same thing. And so I think it's kind of an interesting conversation to have them both on. Rob Hilton, I would love to have Alexandra Petri on, and I have invited her, and she, although in a kind of graceless way, and I will do it in a more formal way, and let's see if we can make that happen.
Josh
And I
Chavez.
will. Josh Chaffetz is a great idea, and that should be very doable. So I will. We can get some invitations out, and people are commenting about the various video quality affecting both Kate and me. I think the explanation for that, just so that you know, is when internet bandwidth constricts, rather than losing the connection, people, it just degrades the video quality. And so sometimes Kate snaps out of focus a little bit, sometimes I snap out of focus a little bit, and sometimes if your bandwidth is really constricted as a viewer, we will just show up as icons,
Is that
but you'll
what it
still be
is?
able to
That's
hear
when
us.
icons show up? Ah.
I believe that is what the I believe that's what's causing it. All right. Thank you all for those suggestions. I'm told it's called adaptive streaming. I love it because it prevents glitching in and out.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool. And notice that since we've been on Crowdcast, you guys haven't complained that I'm glitching a lot.
It's true. Yeah, it actually has been a lot better. This camera's also great, Ben, by the way. Love it.
Yeah, it's a good camera. Although it's a camera that yesterday did not prevent my computer from getting destroyed. This is the same camera that you commented to me, like I was suddenly really washed out, and then I turned it onto my computer. And so the result of that was that it was my computer that was sitting there, not the camera, when because I was using the built-in computer, the built-in camera on the computer, and that's why the computer got hit. Yeah, I have dropped the ball on Andy Slavitt. People have recommended him in the past. I will get on that. All right.
Well,
you wrap up
frittered another
today?
way. What do you say? What did you say?
Oh, that's totally stolen from the old Car Talk guys.
I know it is.
You frittered another hour away watching Car Talk. You frittered away another hour watching In Lieu of Fun. I don't have a computer anymore. I sacrificed my computer for you guys. But we have a show planned for the week. And we will be back tomorrow, 23 hours and 6 minutes from now. And until then,
we don't have fun anymore. So in lieu of fun, Ben now has an external monitor, external keyboard, and an external mouse and an external camera.
Yep. And as of tomorrow, at the Cabin in the Woods, we'll also have a very large quantity of decking material with which I'm going to redo my deck.
I'm impressed you're doing it yourself.
Oh yeah, I do all the carpentry myself.
It's hard. It's shitty in the summer though, and like doing it by yourself. Like, yeah.
It's up higher. It's cooler than it is here in Washington.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway, we will see you all tomorrow, and until then, mwah.
Bye.
Talk to you
Bye,
later.
Ben.